Okay, I've decided to do a little video recording a technique that I've used actually for several years to cut G10 fiberglass. We use this a lot for fins and bulkheads and that type of thing. When you don't otherwise have a CNC to do it with. Really all it takes is a router table, a router, a jeweled bit for cutting fiberglass and composites, and your template. The templates actually can be really accurate, particularly for small parts, maybe even more so than if you were to cut it directly with a CNC. The thing about this, though, is you have to have some way to attach the template. And I do that simply with some Super 77 from 3M. It turns out that when you go to remove the template with something like 3M General Purpose Adhesive Cleaner, it'll certainly come off the G10, but then really it also comes off the plywood. This template has already been used once. Number of cuts, number 1. The Sharpie smeared a little bit when I cleaned it up. But I'll glue it like this from the back sides, and it's a little bit more accurate side since when the laser cuts the plywood from the top, then it sort of makes a V shape. It's not too perceivable, but it does exist. However, one of the things we've got to do is clean this up. So we'll come back, we'll clean this up, talk about a little bit about the safety aspects of it, and go from there. Okay, we're back. As promised, I used the 3M 77 adhesive to affix the plywood template to our blank of G10. In this case, this is 3/32, I believe. And there you go. It is important to note that obviously the thinner this is, the more quickly it'll cut. I've cut up to, of course, 1/4 inch. I don't see any reason why you couldn't cut the full height of the bit here. You just have to go pretty slow when you did it. Now, as I explained before we broke away, that what will happen is the template will go down here, and then the plywood will bear against the smooth section of this bit. But that section of the bit, and let me make sure I get this in the frame here. That section of the bit actually has some buildup from the glue. That's not only the glue that holds the plywood together, but I'm sure some of this is the glue that holds the template to the fiberglass blank. So the first thing we're going to do is clean this. We've also got some sticky, not really sticky, just sort of dirty places on the table we'll clean up as well. Okay, looks like you can see that. A couple words about safety here. Right now the key's out of the router, so it can't be turned on. Also, I'm going to pull up the stool here. Also, you might think, well, gee whiz, your hand's going to be all close to this while that's turning, and that's true. But this is not like a cutting blade that you might use for wood. Your finger's not going to get wrapped up in this. At least I don't think it'll get wrapped up in it, like you might expect with another type of blade. In fact, you can see here, probably even here, where I'm rubbing my thumb against the jeweled cut of the bit, and yeah, well, sure, it defoliates. It takes off some skin, and it certainly would make you bleed, but I don't think it's going to be anything like you'd think of ripping or cutting a finger off. I had a grandfather that lost his finger doing some woodworking, so I'm rather sensitive to this. With that said, obviously be slow about this, and on the larger pieces, you can operate this with the guard in place, just like they would have you do in all the safety manuals. When you get with some smaller pieces, you may find that the guard does get in the way, and to be honest, I think any regular woodworker will tell you That's just about the way with any piece of equipment. Sometimes when you're in close, the guard gets in the way, and the solution to this is just be deliberate and cautious. If you keep your finger out of the blade, or out of the bit in this case, it's not going to hurt you. And knock on wood, I've done this now for years, and never really had even a close call where my finger hit this. You're just very deliberate and careful. The one thing you do not want to do, not because it's necessarily less safe, except that it may startle you, is you don't want to cut on both sides of the bit. In other words, I wouldn't want to draw this, if this was just a piece of fiberglass, straight across this bit, because then it would be cutting on both sides and it'll have a tendency to rattle and skip. Not that that would hurt you. I don't think you're going to find that the fiberglass itself would be capable of cutting you very deep, if at all, but there's no reason to do that. You cut on the outside edge. You can sort of do it in any direction, although you can certainly makes a little bit more sense to feed into the blade. The blade's gonna the feed direction is blade's gonna spin that way or this way in most cases, so you want your feed direction to be this way. You'll see me go back and forth, but again, just slow and deliberate, and obviously keep the guard in place as much as you can. And we can actually put the guard here in place quite a bit for this piece because it's long, but that also won't allow you to see it very well because of the camera. So we'll probably do a little bit of both. Okay, so let's clean this up a little bit. We'll start by cleaning what you would call the bearing surface of the bit. This will give us a little bit better access. I'm going to try to make this so you can see it. There we go. Also allows me to see a little bit better. Now don't press hard, you just want to scrape this off of here. You don't want to gouge the... Be difficult to do with a number 11 knife blade. Slowly work your way around. And the rest of this is just dust, although if you want to take a little soft brass or metal brush and brush this off to make it look pretty. It certainly doesn't hurt anything, but as you can see, that's just remnant dust. Left in the jewel, and while we've got this up, I think you'll be able to see. Let me keep this in the frame. I think you'll be able to see a little bit where we're headed with this, and you can see that the jeweling of the cutting jewel of the bit starts about where the fiberglass is, a little bit below. So your plywood is going to be rotting along the smooth stuff, and it's going to do exactly what you need it to do. Okay, well, I went ahead and cleaned this up a little bit. You can see some of the sticky or some of the dirt's gone. Cleaned this up a little bit, cleaned up our deck here. We'll put this back in. And we should be ready to go. We'll come back here in just a minute and fire this thing up. Okay, here we go. We're ready to use the router here to cut around this template. As I explained before, the router bit's raised up just enough that the smooth area of the bit will actually rot around the edge of the template. So I'm going to put a mask on here. I'm also wearing some safety prescription eyewear. You're not going to be able to hear me very well once I turn everything on. We've got the router that makes a little bit of noise. It certainly makes some noise as it cuts the fiberglass away. And then I've also got a vacuum set up on this. I don't know if you can see this here, to get rid of the fiberglass dust, which is really pretty important. You know, you're not going to breathe what's sucked into a vacuum, and so this works out to be a really good way to do this. I might raise this guard during the process just to show you a little bit better, but generally you always want to use the guard if possible. So here we go. If you can hear me, great. If you can't, well, we'll do subtitles. Take off a little bit at a time. doing here is just sort of screwing it up. Okay. At this point you can see we've got a pretty clean cut here, pretty clean corner. If you'll notice the way the shadow breaks there at the edge or at the end. The last step here we'll drill a hole in this right here, and then we'll come back and clean that up in the next video, and next segment, and we will be done. Okay, we're back. What I've done is I've used, in this case, a little step bit, because that was what was at the drill press, to drill a hole, and it really doesn't matter. The key thing is, obviously, is you don't want to get into your template, but the more material you remove, the easier it's going to be to get the bit through, and the less time it's going to take. So this is a little bit more tricky here, because essentially you want to turn this on. You don't really want to try to lower this over. So we're going to turn this on, but we're going to make sure that it's clear in the hole. So here we go. And then you want to work around the hole. But it doesn't matter which way you go in this particular application. One way will be quicker than the other until you get out to your template. And you'll know you're done because based on feel, based on the fact that the hole is circular, and that you don't see any more fiberglass coming out. You'll notice at this point we don't show that any more glass is being ground off. So we'll center it. Let it come to a stop, and we'll be done. And you can see that that has made a darn good hole, and it is exactly in the center where it needs to be. The final thing we'll do to prepare this piece of fiberglass, for use as a sled, and that's what it is. It's a sled for avionics bay. Is we'll drill our holes, and of course we'll leave it in position to do that, and I will go ahead and drill these just for kicks and giggles. I realize this is more or less just a demo, but we'll drill the tap holes. You'll notice looks like these are number 440, and this is supposed to be maybe a 3/32 inch hole, and we'll show you once that's done. Okay, we're all set up to drill these holes. Go ahead and sink this bit as to not remount our template. pretty good. We'll get set up to drill these number 440 taps. We'll actually use a size tap drill for that. We'll come back. Okay, we're back. This is a bit specifically 440 comes with a 440 tap kit. You'll notice it fits in there perfectly. Over tighten it. Okay, here we go. Try not to hit a hole on your back block. Sink it, rotate a couple of times. We should be there. Get something to point with here. You'll notice the color difference here. This right here is the glass, and this right here is the wood backer block. And that should do it. And you can see by the back side. One of the things that you'll probably end up doing if you use this for a normal switch, if it's used for a normal switch cylinder, is you'd end up notching it. Now usually I just do that as a separate step because I'm not always sure which switch is right. Right now I'm using two different types of switches. And when we come back, we'll cut this off here. When we come back, we'll remove this. Okay, I'm getting a low battery signal. Hopefully we'll have just enough to get through this step. What you're going to see me do is take a little 3M general purpose adhesive cleaner and just put it on the seam. Let it run down the seam like that. That smells sort of awful. And that should be just enough. See how we've got a little crack there? And then once you do that, make sure I'm free. So you turn it up like this. Gravity will take care of the rest. There you go, and it's released. Usually you want to clean your ply up first with the template you're going to reuse when we start to apply on it. This process actually has a tendency to sort of, let's say, season them. If you're used to what, if you understand if you're not familiar with what seasoning is in a pan. As long as you don't round out those holes, you're in good shape. So there we go. Now, for the piece itself, this adhesive release, or adhesive cleaner, it's not fiberglass. Adhesive release in a spray, which is real handy. So if you've got a lot of G10 to do this on, spray brush really good. Looks like we've got it. So it has the benefit of cleaning off your work surface. So that's it. So that's how you turn a template into an actual bulkhead, or in this case a sled for an avionics bay.